I want you to imagine for a moment that you and I are sitting across the table from one another, and I pose this question to you. How often have you found yourself feeling sad, depressed, or maybe even suicidal since the onset of your menopausal symptoms? What would your answer be? Or perhaps this question: how do your thoughts and feelings change when depression or anxiety set in now that you are in menopause? This is an awkward conversation. It is a challenging conversation, but it is so vital and relevant to all of us in this stage of life. And so I strongly encourage you to watch the totality of this video, because I am going to take a deeper dive in just a moment into what is actually going on with our brains. But before I go there, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for stopping in. If this is your first time finding my channel, I am Mary. Why I want to talk about this is not just because it's National Suicide Prevention Month, not just because women over 50 have higher rates of suicide completion. One of the main reasons why I want to talk about this in all sincerity is because I believe that too many women are in denial when talking about menopause. Too many women are not willing to face their menopause. They're not willing to own like what is happening to them, the feelings of being out of control, the inability to regulate our moods, all the things that happen. Too many women are in denial, and they're in denial for various reasons. And honestly, a lot of my motivation is to help that woman, because I have several who come into my office and sit on my sofa right here. And I have to be really careful when I'm in the role as a clinician, because I don't want to push too hard, nor do I want to talk too much about menopause. But at the same time, I also know a lot of what they are experiencing is exacerbated by what is happening biologically to us in post-menopause. I'm not going to bore you with stats, but I am going to take a little bit of a deep dive into what is actually going on in our brain during menopause as it relates to our mental health. In order to have this conversation, we need to go back just a little bit to perimenopause. Now, perimenopause means the time around menopause. This usually happens in our early to mid 40s, but for some women, it can happen in their 30s or in their late 40s, closer to 50. So when perimenopause sets in, our three sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, begin their steady decline, and they reach peak low levels or no levels at all when we are in postmenopause. Now, postmenopause for a lot of women is in their early to mid 50s. But just like perimenopause, some women reach this in their 40s, some women reach this closer to 60. There is a little bit of a wiggle room. When this happens, although all of our sex hormones are important, there's one in particular that I want to point out, and that is estrogen. I had no idea how important and valuable estrogen was for us as women until I was over 50 and postmenopausal. As estrogen levels begin to decline, and as said, sometimes they completely bottom out. When that is happening, simultaneously over here, we have four neurotransmitters that are no longer producing the way that they should. And these neurotransmitters are GABA, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. In case you're wondering, what is a neurotransmitter? In simplest forms, they are messengers, more specifically, chemical messengers that send messages from the neurons in our brain to various body parts, namely our ovaries. So they're very important. Once again, estrogen is on the decline, it's bottoming out, so now the production of these four neurotransmitters also doing the same thing. Why are these neurotransmitters so important? Here's why. They are responsible for multiple key things that all of us need, but especially women in menopause. They're responsible for feelings pleasure, joy, being motivated, being able to regulate our stress levels, being able to calm ourselves down naturally without medication, being able to regulate our moods, being able to regulate our sleep. So, if you're following me, then you should at this point now see the direct correlation between estrogen leaving our body and feeling really, really crappy, for lack of a better word. We, during this time, because these neurotransmitters are not producing as they should, we then, as a result, struggle to find any pleasure, hence the sense of despair, hopelessness, depression. We are unable to motivate ourselves, hence feeling lazy, gaining weight, not really doing anything. We're not able to regulate our sleep. And what happens when we don't sleep? We're very irritable. Our moods can be high and low when we are not sleeping properly. And then we get overexcited. We get very anxious, very overwhelmed, and we're not able to calm ourselves down naturally without medication. All of this impacts our mental health. And then another added factor is our environment. So you take a woman who's in her mid 50s, she's postmenopausal, she has all of these things going on because her estrogen has bottomed out. And then, in conjunction with her biology, she also has marital problems. She and her husband are struggling. They're contemplating divorce. She also has aging parents who are in their 80s and they have health issues. And now she finds herself having to care for them. She is approaching retirement and there's stress involved because she is not financially where she feels that she should be. There are all of these outside environmental things happening in conjunction to what's going on inside of her brain, her mental, emotional, and physical health. And when you add all of those things together, it can be a perfect storm for some women. And that is just simply not okay, especially when we can do something about it. Okay, my friend, that was a lot. I want to shift gears now and I want to talk about three things in particular. The first thing I want to touch on is I want to give you 18 signs and symptoms that you can begin looking for that will help you to identify, is something going on with me that I need to pay attention to that could be leading me down a dark path? I also want to touch on, how do you know if this is real depression versus just menopause? And then lastly, I want to leave you with my 6 solutions. I want to first just read through this list and then I want to come back and touch on just a couple of them. So, first is lethargic, fatigued, irritable, lack of concentration, memory loss, feelings of not caring about most things, perhaps even some people, no motivation to clean your house, lose weight, exercise, change your diet, go to therapy, pretty much anything, increased crying spells, increased feelings of hopelessness about your work, your finances, your relationships, your health, your marriage, your family, maybe all of it. Increased feelings of wanting the pain, sadness, and anxiety to just end, to go away. Focusing primarily on what is missing in your life, the negatives, the lack, gaining weight or gaining more weight. Increase in insomnia, increase in the desire to be alone, even though naturally you are an extrovert, which means you love people. A decrease in a desire to pray or attend church, to have any type of spiritual connection. Increased feelings of no one understands me, or I am all alone in this, or I must be crazy. 17. Increased feelings of being unhinged or out of control. And lastly, an overall sense of confusion, disappointment, and or self-pity. Now, I want to just touch on just a couple of them because just for time's sake, it would take too long to go through each one of them in depth. I want to go back to the feelings of not caring about most things and even some people. I think it's okay to a certain point to just not care. And in some ways, it's a little bit freeing in menopause to not care so much, especially if you are a natural people pleaser like me. But when your feelings of not caring kind of exceed the quote unquote normal things, such as I don't really care if I have a full face of makeup on, or I don't really care that my hair is dirty because I can just put a ball cap on. Those again are kind of lesser on this level. What I'm referring to are things like I no longer care about my hygiene, brushing my teeth, taking a bath or shower, wearing deodorant. I no longer care about people, my best friend of 30 years, my spouse, my marriage, those really big, more significant things. If you notice that your feelings of not caring kind of bumps up a notch or two and is now in that realm of hygiene or actual people and relationships, that is key, right? That's where you need to hone in and go, okay, I've now crossed the line and this is no longer quote unquote normal not caring in menopause. So that's one that I wanted to touch on. I also wanted to touch on the one talking about increased feelings of just wanting the pain and the anxiety to end. So there's something that's called a death wish. And so basically what this means is you don't necessarily want to end your life. Like you don't have an actual plan to take your life, but because your emotional pain is so overwhelming, maybe you also have some physical pain that has been exacerbated later in life. Or maybe your anxiety just feels just untamable, like it just feels so out of control. And so you're just thinking to yourself, okay, Lord, you can take me at any time. If I die in a car accident, okay. If I'm diagnosed with cancer, I'm not going to do any treatments. I'm just going to let it take my life. So again, it's not necessarily suicide, I'm going to take my life, but rather, if I die, I'm okay with it because I just can't stand this overall feeling of pain and anxiety and despair. It is just too much. So it's really important to pay attention to when are those things happening? Because even though you might not be a suicidal, having any type of death wish type of mentality is a red flag. It is an alarm that is going off that you need to pay attention to. And then I want to talk about the feelings. This last one I want to touch on is the feeling of being unhinged and out of control. It's, again, I use the word normal loosely here, but it's fairly normal to just feel like you're coming unglued in menopause, that you just have this sense of, I can't control anything and it's driving me crazy. So there's some normalcy to that. But where the line gets crossed is when it's reoccurring over and over again. If it's a random feeling, meaning just very sporadic, I wouldn't be too alarmed by that. But if you are noticing more and more, maybe on a weekly basis, maybe even on a daily basis, where these feelings of being out of control, being unhinged, just well up inside of you, and now it is manifesting in negative outcomes. It's now affecting your health, it's now affecting your relationships, maybe it's even affecting your job. That's when you need to stop. Again, pay attention to those alarm bells going off. The one thing that all of these signs and symptoms have in common is consistency. That is the key. So, when any of these signs and symptoms are happening consistently in your life and you're noticing an uptake in one or several of them, and it's just, again, it's creating these problems in your life, in your relationships, in your job, in your finances, in your health, that is when you need to stop and pay attention and stop being in denial and telling yourself, well, I can't help it because I'm in menopause. Yes, my friend, you absolutely can help it. And as just mentioned, I'm going to leave you with 6 solutions. Before I dive into these 6 solutions, I do want to just very quickly touch on, how do you know what's like real depression? Something that is not about your menopause, and then like what is primarily due to menopause. I think one of the easiest ways to answer this question is just to simply look back on your life. If you can look back into your early life during your adolescent years or maybe during your 20s and 30s, and you can identify real struggles with severe depression, with suicidal thoughts, or maybe you even had a suicide attempt when you were a teenager. If that is you, if those things have happened, then know that you more than likely have real clinical depression. You more than likely have an undiagnosed mental illness. And now that you're in your 50s and you're postmenopausal, your menopausal symptoms are just exacerbating what has already been there. So that again is probably the quickest way to know what is really going on with myself, a real thing, versus, oh, okay, well, this is just menopause. I hope that makes sense, right? So again, you need to reflect back on your life and see what are those signs and symptoms that happened maybe in your teenage years leading up to menopause. Keep in mind though, whatever preceded our menopause, if it's not healed or dealt with, it will exacerbate in menopause. Okay, all of it, any traumas, any wounds, any scars, anything that has been, thrown to the wayside, shoved underneath the proverbial rug, that absolutely will pop up in menopause, and it will be heightened, right? It will be exacerbated because of the depletion of estrogen, which then has a direct impact on the depletion of our neurotransmitters. Okay, if there's any questions or comments or concerns about that part of this talk, please do me a favor and comment below and let me know your thoughts, your concerns, or your questions about any of the signs and symptoms, or going back to, is this real? Is this like really me? Or is this just being in menopause? Okay, my friend, I want to now leave you with solutions. 6 tangible things that you can begin doing today to help decrease your symptoms of sadness, depression, and anxiety. So, my number one solution is go to therapy. I know that might sound a little bit, oh, of course you would say that. But I want to pause here for a moment and acknowledge a truth. Therapy is something that I have believed in even before I knew I wanted to be a therapist. Literally, I went to counseling in my 20s because I was struggling. And as a result of going to counseling, I realized that I wanted to be a counselor. So I have known the value of therapy, of talking to someone in this setting, right? In a therapeutic setting that is a neutral environment, that is a safe environment, that there is such benefits from it. If for whatever reason you don't want to go to therapy, you've had a bad experience with therapy, whatever it is, then at minimum, find someone, a trusted friend or family member or neighbor or coworker that you can confide in. Talking is so important during most difficult situations in our life. but especially right now when you're having all of these things happening and it's very unsettling and it's very unfamiliar, it's important to have someone that you can talk about and get the thoughts out of your head. Number two, pour into your prayer life, your church community, your spirit. This is not about religion. This is about God. This is about having a higher power. It is so important that we have something greater than us to lean into, to pour into. Because if you're it, if you believe that you're it, there's nothing greater or higher than you, then you are going to struggle that much more than those who do have faith, who do have a higher power. So lean into that spiritual side of self. If you are part of a church, of a religion, make sure that you are pouring into that community, that you are leaning into your pastors and your preachers and other people in your church community. If you have a prayer life and you've let it fall to the wayside, I strongly encourage you get back into that prayer life. Make prayer a priority. Make time for feeding your soul and your spirit. Number three, go into nature, into green space. So this can be something as simple as walking in your backyard barefoot to, digging in the earth through, weeding your flower beds or planting flowers or trees or bushes, all the way to going into the mountains or the forest or the desert, wherever you live, and doing some hiking, like being in nature, being in the green space. Nature is very grounding, and when we are grounded, we are present, and when we are present, we are calm. Number five, excuse me, number four, being present through your five senses. So I just mentioned when you are in nature, when you are in green spaces, you are grounded and present. So now I want to talk to you about how do you become present when you're not in nature? Maybe you're driving somewhere and you're feeling very overwhelmed and stressed. Maybe you have a lot on your mind. Maybe there's a lot of traffic. Perhaps you live in a large city like Dallas or LA or New York, and there's just tons of people and stuff happening around you, and you're just so overwhelmed and anxious. You need to be able to find that present moment, and coming to your five senses is a great way to do this, because this is something that you literally can do anywhere, even driving. What it looks like is you begin with just one of your senses. So most people begin with what they see, and you just start identifying, what do you see? Or is it people? Is it things? Describe it in detail. Is it a yellow car with a black stripe? Do you see a white dog and a black cat? Like, identify what are you seeing in detail. And then go through the remaining four senses the exact same way. What are you hearing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What are you touching? The more detailed, the more specific that you are able to get with your senses, the more present that you will be. And once again, when you are fully present, you are calm. There is no distress. There is no anger, angst, or anxiety. Number five, medication or supplements. While I do not push medication or supplements on my clients, I am fully aware that there are times in lives when we need a little bit extra. To me, medication and supplements are simply tools. They are not the answer, they are an answer. Don't be a martyr. Don't be a victim. If you know you are struggling or suffering and you feel like it's weakness to take an SSRI or some type of supplement, my friend, this is when you must let it go and allow yourself, give yourself permission to reach out to your doctor. Let them know, I thought I could manage my symptoms of menopause, but I am really struggling. I'm having some really disturbing or dark thoughts, and I don't want to stay there. take an SSRI, take something like Wellbutrin or Lexapro, and just try it. And again, if you're not really wanting a prescription, then go to your local health food store, or maybe you can go online and order a supplement. I will say this about supplements: it's very important that you do a little bit of background checking on supplements, because most of them are not FDA approved, and so you want to make sure that it is a high quality supplement. You want to be sure to know, where are they coming from, who are the manufacturers, and what do you know about them, because it is very possible that you can take something that either is, super cheap and filled with a bunch of fillers and you're just not getting any effect at all, or it might even produce a negative effect. But medication and supplements can be a very useful tool. And number 6. This one is one of my favorites, but I also know that a lot of people struggle with this one because I hear it all the time. And it's this: any form of writing. So, what do I mean about any form of writing? I mean that you can journal. So, if you want to go to the bookstore or go on Amazon and get you a really pretty, aesthetically pleasing journal, go for it. If you would rather just thought dump. So what thought dumping looks like is you literally take a sheet of paper, right? Just a random sheet of paper, and you just start writing. You dump out your thoughts, literally all your thoughts, the good, the bad, the ugly, the really dark thoughts, and you just pour them into the paper, and you write and you write and you write and you write. And when your pen stops, that's when you know your thoughts have been released. And then, and here's the key component to thought dumping: you take this piece of paper, you fold it up, and you either shred it or you burn it. I recommend burning, as long as you're doing it in a safe way, because there's something about seeing the smoke rise and then seeing the paper turn to ashes. So that's thought dumping. You also have, writing poetry. You can write songs, short stories, or maybe you even want to write a book. Maybe you have a story to tell and you want to put it in the form of a book. All of this is appropriate. So, again, any form of writing can be very therapeutic, and it's just a wonderful release. Okay, my friend, I know that I gave you a lot of information, and I think what would be appropriate as far as me ending this conversation on this very delicate subject is this. Even though it can be scary to have these dark thoughts about suicide, about death, about not wanting to be here anymore, there is a wee bit of normalcy to it. Because once again, we need to look at the biology of what's happening to our brain in menopause in conjunction with our environment. Now, even though I'm saying there's a little bit of normalcy to it, I want to emphasize that doesn't mean that it's normal. It just means that it's something that can happen and does happen. The key is, don't stay there. Don't continue to normalize these feelings and these thoughts because you think that you can't help it. You feel like, oh, well, it's just too much. There's no help. I can't take hormones. I can't take SSRIs. I can't do this. I can't do that. So there's whole lot of can'ts. Know that it's important to not stay there. And when you implement one of those solutions, all of those solutions, or perhaps you have other solutions. But when you begin to implement just one solution and then you just rinse and repeat and then add another and another, what you will notice is just that steady decline of the intensity of the emotions. And you will get to a place where now, okay, I can see a little bit clearer, and then I can start taking some necessary steps. I know that if you are a human being, that you have value and you have worth. And it's okay if you don't believe that. Just know that it's still true. And if you are willing to believe me, a stranger, somebody who doesn't know you, somebody that you don't trust, if you're still willing to believe what I'm saying, that you do have value and you do have worth, I want you to put forth the effort and the action, just one small thing. And I promise you, the more you do that, the more you will come to believe that you absolutely have value and have worth. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I pray that you have a beautiful day. I pray that you have or find good, strong mental health. If anything in this video resonated with you, if you liked what I had to say, if you like me in any capacity, it would mean the world to me if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, and when available to you, share this video with somebody that you know would benefit from it. Thank you so much for taking time to listen and to watch. Until next time, bye, friend.